So we finished off where we now have Arjuna, Krishna, and Bhima. They're off to the city of Magadha. They are headed east from Indraprastha to Magadha. Magadha is in the state which is now known as Bihar, I believe. So they head towards the kingdom of Jarasandha. They arrive there. They do not enter the city by the main gate, the gate where visitors always come. They enter the city through a place that is considered inauspicious. It's the equivalent of entering someone's house through the bathroom window, right? When you're a visitor, you're a guest, you're a friend, you're welcomed to someone's home, you enter through the front door. Ring the doorbell and you enter. To enter someone's house through the bathroom window, it means there is explicit nefarious intent. So in the structure, according to Vastu Shastra, architectural sciences, there are places in a town, a home, a house, a city that are considered inauspicious to enter. Obviously, Krishna, Arjuna, and Bhima, they know this. They enter the city of Jarasandha, Magadha, through an inauspicious entrance, essentially declaring that they have nefarious intent. Now remember, as we mentioned last week, they are dressed as Snataka Brahmanas. So they enter Magadha through this inauspicious entrance, and they're going down the main street dressed as Snataka Brahmanas. And even though they're dressed as Snataka Brahmins, they have the stature of kings, Kshatriyas. They have the scars of battle on their arms. They have the scars of battle on their being. They are muscular. They walk with a bearing that is clearly Kshatriya warrior type. Yet they're dressed as Snataka Brahmins. They're going through the city, the main thoroughfare, and they're going into the shops. They'll go into a shop of a flower vendor, and they would steal essentially flowers and garlands, and they would garland themselves. And they would walk out of the shop without paying. No one could stop them. There were guards and police in the city watching these three Snataka Brahmins go into shops, take what they want, and leave without paying. They would go into a fruit seller's shop, the grocery store. They would take some fruit and they would leave eating the fruit without paying for it. The shopkeepers, and he sees Snataka Brahmins, first of all, but they're obviously more than just Snataka Brahmins. They don't say anything. The guards don't even say anything. The police who are patrolling the city streets. So in this way, they're going from one shop to another. They go through a garment shop, all expensive silks hanging, and they take a scarf, a silk chador or something, and they wrap it around themselves, and they walk down the street without paying. Jarasandha, he's in his court, in his royal hall. And some of his advisors, some of the guards, they come running into the court. My dear King Jarasandha, there is a problem in the city. And they go on to tell King Jarasandha what's happening with these three Brahmins walking through the main street of the city and they're not causing big problems, but they're just stealing from various shops. And this is unheard of. Jarasandha is a demon. But even so, he rules with such ruthlessness that there is zero crime in his city. So this kind of activity is unheard of in the city of Magadha. Some of the advisor Brahmins who are part of the court of Jarasandha, they speak up. They say, actually, my dear Jarasandha, this is actually more serious than just a few Brahmins taking fruit and garments and not paying. We can see in the sky these evil omens. Inauspicious things are happening in the sky. Crows are attacking eagles. That's considered inauspicious. Some various weather patterns considered inauspicious. So the Brahmins of his court are telling him, my dear Jarasandha, there is something going on here. You better go and check this out. Jarasandha gets in his chariot. Jarasandha's chariot is not a simple affair. It's not a simple chariot with four wheels. It's described as having, depending on which literature, I believe in the Mahabharat says it had 8 wheels. Some other shastras say it had 10, 12. It's Jarasandha. Jarasandha's chariot is the limo of the chariot world. It was very interesting to note that the banner, the flag that flies on top of Jarasandha's chariot is the color of the rainbow. It's the rainbow flag. I thought that was very interesting. And it's a very elaborate, it's considered a divine chariot. It's not something that has even been replicated in earth, in the land of Bharat. So he gets on this chariot, his ministers, his generals, they all follow, and they go to the main avenue to see what's going on with these 3 Snataka Brahmins. So Jarasandha, he arrives there, his entire entourage, and he observes the proper etiquette. He comes with a puja plate to offer them puja because they're Brahmins, Snataka Brahmins. He's going to worship them, honor them. He brings water to bathe their feet. So he comes in this welcoming, respectful manner to these 3 Snataka Brahmins. As he's about to engage in this worship, Krishna steps forward and he says, my dear king, stop. We're not interested in your worship. No desire whatsoever to be honored, worshiped, or respected by you. We don't need this. This is in public. This is in the middle of Fifth Avenue. That is Magadha. All the people are seeing this interaction. Jarasandha's ministers, generals, advisors are all seeing this interaction. They've never seen someone dismiss Jarasandha. Jarasandha is essentially the most powerful king in all of Bharat at this point in time, as we heard last week. Jarasandha, he doesn't take offense. He says, very well. And he has his assistant, his attendant, take away the puja paraphernalia. And he says, you've come to my city. I would like to know, how can I help you? And Krishna says, my 2 friends, they have taken the vow of silence. They're not going to speak to you. I'll do the talking here. They will only speak at midnight. We have no desire to speak to you now. We will speak at midnight. So Jarasandha says, very well, if that's the vow of you and your friends, or at least your 2 companions, very well, at least come with me and I will set you up in the guest house for the evening and we can talk tonight at midnight. So Jarasandha takes Krishna, Arjuna, Bhima to a very elaborate, beautiful palace, wonderful rooms, beautiful vistas, gardens. And he sets them up there. He says, my dear Snataka Brahman, you stay here, you remain here, and I will come back at midnight and you can tell me how I can serve you. So he goes, midnight arrives, Jarasandha comes back to the palace. Krishna then speaks up. He says, my dear Jarasandha, Jarasandha asks, why have you come here? What are you doing here? I can tell that you're actually not Brahmins. I can tell by your stature, you're not Brahmins. What's going on here? Why are you going through this charade? I don't think you're Brahmins, I think you're Kshatriyas. Your dress is illegitimate. And Krishna retorts. He says, how can you say that? How can you assume We're not Brahmanas. We're not Snataka Brahmanas. A Snataka Brahmana is, in the Vedic social system, all families went to Gurukula. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, all their children went to Gurukula. In Gurukula, they were all equal. Whether they came from a Brahmin family, a Kshatriya family, they were all equal, right? Krishna, Kshatriya family, went to Gurukula and his classmate was Sudama and Brahmana. They were considered equals in Gurukula. Dronacharya went to Gurukula with Drupada. Drupada is a Kshatriya, Dronacharya is a Brahmin. They were in Gurukula together and they were equal. We know the story, right? Drupada says, we will be friends forever. Dronacharya says, in Gurukula it's okay because we're all considered equal as students. But when we leave Gurukula, I'm a Brahmin, you're a Kshatriya, you're going to go and rule the world. How can we possibly maintain this unequal balance of friendship? It's just the power and difference. It's not going to work. So we know the story of Dronacharya and Drupada. Similarly, the Snataka Brahmin position is when all of the students, when they graduate Gurukula, before they go into the Grihastha ashram, or before they take up their duties as a Brahmana, as a Kshatriya, as a Vaishya, that time in between, that state is called the Snataka Brahmana. That's the position of a Snataka Brahmana. Snataka Brahmana is essentially a Gurukul graduate who has yet to take up their Varna, whether it's Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. That little space, that little position is called the Snataka Brahmana. The technical term is Vidya Snataka. Anyways, so Krishna says, how can you assume we're neither Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya? We are Snataka Brahmanas. We're in that space between Gurukula and taking up our Varna. How can you assume that we are Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya? You have no right to assume that. How can you call into question our credibility? Jarasandha says, you're talking very, very cleverly, whoever you are, but you have entered my kingdom essentially through the bathroom window. You have entered my kingdom through an inauspicious gate, announcing, in effect, your nefarious, malicious intent upon me and my kingdom. You have come down the main street of my kingdom, and you have flaunted all the laws, all the rules of my rule. I am the king, I set the law. You've broken all laws, showing that you have no respect for me, the king of this kingdom. If you were a Brahmana, if a Brahmana has a problem, they speak. If you were actually a Brahmin, you would have come to the court and you would have said, Jarasandha, 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 you're this, you're that. You didn't do that. Kshatriyas, they don't speak. They do. So I can tell by your actions coming in through the inauspicious place, flaunting all the laws by your action, you're essentially declaring, if not your intent for war, at least your animosity. Only Kshatriyas behave and act in this way. So you are not legitimate Brahmanas. How can you talk as if you are? And then Krishna retorts. He says, really? Well, my dear king, the reason why we act like this is because we don't consider you as a legitimate Kshatriya. And this shocks Jarasandha. I mean, I'm not a legitimate Kshatriya. I mean, this is Jarasandha's pride. How can you say I'm not a legitimate Kshatriya? Again, Jarasandha has no idea who these three people are, Krishna, Bhima, and Arjuna. Krishna says, no, we don't consider you a legitimate Kshatriya. That's why we flaunt your rules. That's why we come to the kingdom through an inauspicious gate. We don't consider you worthy of being honored. We don't want your worship because you are not an honorable person. We don't want to talk to you because you're not an honorable Kshatriya. Jarasandha is getting angry. Now he's becoming upset. They are attacking his Kshatriya honor. How dare they? Krishna says, the reason why we don't consider you a legitimate Kshatriya, according to Dharma, is that you have gone all over Bharat, capturing kings, bringing them back to Magadha as prisoners with the intent of performing a human sacrifice of all these kings, 86 kings, with the intent of making a human sacrifice to Lord Shiva. Nowhere is this part of Kshatriya Dharma. Kshatriya Dharmas, yes, they may go to war out of necessity, but when they vanquish their enemy, either they vanquish the enemy by killing the other Kshatriya, and that Kshatriya is liberated because they follow Kshatriya Dharma, or they defeat that Kshatriya and they cause or they allow that Kshatriya to rule their kingdom, but under the administration of the victorious king. But they never capture, imprison the defeated king for a human sacrifice. And Lord Shiva doesn't even accept human sacrifices. So everything about what you're doing, Jarasandha, is adharma. It is against the code of Kshatriya Dharma. We do not consider you a valid, legitimate Kshatriya. Jarasandha is upset. Jarasandha is furious. Krishna was right. Jarasandha steam is coming out of his ears. And Krishna says, you're right. We are here for nefarious intent. We're here to end your rule because you are not a legitimate Kshatriya. Parashuram, when he wanted to kill the Kshatriyas, he declared war and he fought the Kshatriyas. On the field of battle, he killed them all. He did not take them prisoner. He did not intend to have a human sacrifice of Kshatriyas. You are illegitimate. I am Krishna. These are my cousins, Bhim and Arjun. We're here to put an end to your rule. Jarasandha, furious. But now the revelation is there. He knows he's talking to Krishna, Bhima, and Arjuna. So Jarasandha says, very well. So you're challenging me to single combat. Is that what's going on here? Krishna says, yes, absolutely. Choose any one of us to single combat, and we will end your life and your rule of Magadha. Jarasandha, he knows Krishna. Jarasandha fought Krishna 18 times. The Yadavas and Krishna defeated Jarasandha's armies. But the last time, when Jarasandha attacked the Yadu dynasty, you know the story of Krishna the Ranchor, right? Krishna ran away from the battlefield. So Jarasandha, he looks at Krishna and says, you are a coward. Ranchor means coward. You are Ranchor. You're a coward. I'm not going to fight hand-to-hand combat with a coward. It's beneath my dignity to fight with a coward. There's no glory in beating the living daylights of, of someone I already know to be a coward. Not interested in you. I'll see you on the battlefield. He turns to Arjuna. He looks at Arjuna, and Arjuna, in comparison to him, he says, Arjuna, you're a child. You're a little baby boy. I'm not interested in fighting children. There's no glory in me beating the smithereens out of a child. You go home back to Kunti. I'm not interested in fighting you. He turns to Bhima. Bhima is of the same stature as Jarasandha, powerfully built, big. He's, as we know the story, he has the equivalent of 8,000 or 10,000 elephants, depending on the version of the story. And Bhima is looking Jarasandha dead in his eyes, giving Jarasandha the evil eye. And Jarasandha says, yes, I'll fight with you. There is glory in defeating someone as powerful as you are. Let's go. They go out into a clearing. Now, word spreads throughout all of Magadha that these three Snataka Brahmins that came early in the day and were eating people's fruit, they turned out to be Krishna, Arjuna, and Bhima. Word spreads like wildfire. And now there's going to be one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat between Bhima and Arjuna. The entire city converges on the area set aside in some field somewhere for this to happen. Everyone who could come came to see this event. The fame of Bhima is far and wide. The fame of Jarasandha is far and wide. This is the fight of the century. Jarasandha calls his chief ministers and he says, as of this moment, Sahadev is the heir apparent. In case I die, Sahadev is to be crowned king of Magadha. So the ministers, they made those arrangements. Jarasandha tightened his belt. It's described in the Mahabharat. He tied his hair back, so apparently he had long hair. And Bhima and Jarasandha went at it. And they began to pulverize one another. And it's described that the fight went on. In the Mahabharat, it describes the fight went on for 14 days. In other places, it describes that the fight went on for 28 days. Now, there's a very important reason as to why it's double in some places by 2. And that goes into the calculations of Kalpa, Beta, and creationism. And it's complex, but it's quite interesting that in some places it says 14 days, in some it's twice that much. There are some interesting reasons why there's a discrepancy of exactly twice as much. We won't go into that. That's a class in and of itself. We'll go by the Mahabharat version. 14 days. On the 13th day, Krishna gets Bhima's, and this is 14 days, day and night, by the Mahabharat retelling. 14 days, day and night. On the beginning of the 14th day, Krishna gets Bhima's attention. And he says, my dear Bhima, enough is enough. Jarasandha is getting tired. It's time for you to put an end to this. So Bhima takes the hint and he picks up Jarasandha over his head and dropping him on his knee, he breaks Jarasandha's back. And Jarasandha died. When this happened, of course, there was a huge shock. No one expected. No one knew what to expect, considering it's Bhima and Jarasandha. But now there became great worry in the city of Magadha. Jarasandha was really, of course, he was a demon, but he was essentially the protector of the kingdom. What's going to happen? Immediately, Krishna, Arjuna, and Bhima, they called for Sahadev, Jarasandha's son. And they immediately affirmed that Sahadev would be the king of Magadha to allay the fears of the people of Magadha, not that they were going to now subjugate the kingdom of Magadha and essentially treat the kingdom and the citizens of Magadha the way Jarasandha treated other kingdoms that he conquered. So immediately Krishna installed Jarasandha's son, Sahadev, on the throne of Magadha. And Sahadev, who was also a bit worried, not knowing what was going to happen with him, was he going to be taken as a prisoner, just as his father took other kings as prisoners? Krishna, no, you are the king now of Magadha. You are now a vassal and an ally of the Pandavas. And Krishna ordered, Bhima and Arjuna ordered that Sahadev release those 86 kings, which Sahadev, of course, did so. In appreciation for what Krishna had done, Sahadev gave Jarasandha, his father's chariot, to Krishna. And immediately when Krishna stood up on the chariot that was given to him as a gift from Sahadev, the rainbow flag of Jarasandha immediately transformed, and Garuda came from Vaikuntha and landed on the flag of the chariot, signifying that this is now the chariot of Lord Krishna. So we'll wrap this up here, but there's just an aside, because the version I've told is the Mahabharat. We know there are other literary versions wherein the battle the fight between Bhima and Jarasandha was not only for just 14 days, but for 28. So this is the other version I want to share. In the other versions, where the fight goes on for 28 days, it's described that during the day, Bhima and Jarasandha would beat the brains out of, beat the living daylights out of each other. But then at night, Jarasandha would invite them, make sure they were well fed, make sure the wounds of Bhima was taken care of by the royal physicians. He got a massage. He was able to sleep and rest to prepare for the fight the next day. This was going on for 28 days. On the 28th day of the battle, of this fight, Bhima was beating Jarasandha. And Krishna, at the beginning of the day, Krishna said, okay, Bhima, enough is enough. It's time to deal with him, time to dispatch him. And Bhima picked Jarasandha over his head, broke his back. That didn't kill Jarasandha. His back miraculously healed. He jumped up, kept fighting Bhima. So Bhima would pick him up, break his back, pick him up, break his back. He could not kill Jarasandha. And he looks at Krishna, what's with this dude? And Krishna picks up a kusha grass, a bit of grass, and he splits it. And if we know, Krishna told the story of Jarasandha in Indraprastha, where Jarasandha was born from two mothers, half of his body from one mother each. It was only when the two were joined by Jara did he come to life. So Bhima realized that's how we kill Jarasandha. So he pinned Jarasandha's leg to the ground, one leg, took the other leg and bifurcated him. He left him. But miraculously, the two halves by themselves joined back together. And Bhima was, again, how is this happening? He turns to Krishna, and Krishna splits the grass, and he throws the right blade to the left, and the left blade to the right. So Bhima gets the point. He pins Jarasandha to the ground, steps on his left leg, takes his right ankle, bifurcates him, throws the right side of Jarasandha to the left side to the right. And the two halves were unable to be rejoined, and Jarasandha expired. So that's one version of the Jarasandha story, and I've just told the one that's from the Mahabharat. So that is the story of the killing of Jarasandha, and next week we'll go into the Rajasuya Yajna and how that all transpired. Hari Hari.